My husband's cheating on me with local girls. My mom's hearing about it. There's all this family pressure to keep up appearances, keep the marriage going. You are the problem because you're never home. But you're earning the money and keeping the lifestyle. It's a lot.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you today, grateful for the gift of life and grateful for this opportunity to talk, heal, and grow together as we share our testimonies and life lessons. Thank you for your love and your care. Thank you that you are interested in the minute details of our lives. Please be with each listener as they will be listening to this conversation. Please make yourself known to them, and may your spirit minister to each and everyone's heart, offering comfort, guidance, inspiration, and peace. Let each one experience your unfailing love and know that you are interested in every bit of their life. Lord, we pray that this conversation would not just be an exchange of words, but allow each of us to emerge from this time together changed in some meaningful way and empowered to live more fully for your glory. I love you, Lord. We honor you. Thank you for everything that you do for us. In Jesus' loving and precious name I pray. Amen.
Welcome to another episode of the Zambezi Bell podcast. Today we have an incredible guest, and her name is Miss Wadzanai Garwe, and I have been so looking forward to this conversation. She is currently traveling in South Africa, visiting family and on vacation, and she has taken this time to talk to me. So if I'm a little bit dusty, guys, it is 4:00 a.m. over here, but this conversation had to happen. Let me tell you guys a little bit about our guest. She's a dynamic global leader, economist, and humanitarian advocate whose powerful voice inspires audiences to create a more just and equitable world. Her work reflects a deep commitment to unity, inclusion, and transformative change. Ms. Wadzanai shares personal stories with actionable insights to ignite hope and drive action. Drawing from her extensive experience across continents and her roles in addressing critical global issues such as human rights, gender equity, HIV/AIDS awareness, and sustainable development, Ms. Wadzanai speaks on a wide range of topics, including leadership, finance, mental health, African experiences, and gender equality. Her ability to connect deeply with diverse audiences empowers others to become agents of change, fostering collaboration and bridging cultural divides.
Thank you so much, Praise. I am so honored to be here on your podcast. I love having conversations about lived experience. I love having conversations as African women because we are, I think, the most silenced. We are the least acknowledged, and our journey and the personalization of our stories is so important. I do this for the girl child. I also have a son, and I'm very blessed to have a son and a daughter. My son Munyoro is 31 this year, and my daughter Ruvarashe is 27. Munyoro means the calm one. He was very calm when he was in the stomach. He didn't kick. I actually had to go to the doctor to check if his heart was beating. I had to go for weekly checkups. This boy was so happy to be in my womb. He was not moving, and when I got into labor, it took him 2 days. I broke waters on a Friday. He came out on a Monday. This boy was like, I don't want to leave the womb. My son was named by my ex-husband, and my daughter was named by my mother. And Ruvarashe means God's flower. And she was the complete opposite. She was ready to come out. She came out early. She had to be a cesarean. She was like, I'm ready for the world, and she's been ready all the time. So I do this for my children, and I do this for every other person who may think that their dreams cannot be realized, and just that if you live your authentic self and if you follow your passion and do what comes naturally to you, you will reach your highest goal.
Wow. I mean, we haven't even really started and you're already dropping gems. Well, let's start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your childhood, growing up in Zimbabwe, going abroad during that time for your education. Then we'll take it from there.
I was born in Bulawayo in 1966. So I'm going to be 59 years old today. I was
Wow.
born at Mpilo Hospital. My mom was a nurse and my dad was a teacher. And I was born during apartheid. I was born in Rhodesia. So this was a time, if you know about apartheid, I know a lot of people know the South African story. Zimbabwe was under a similar apartheid under Rhodesia. And when I was born, actually, there was segregation. So my parents were very forward looking. So they had just come back. When my mom got pregnant, they were in Scotland. My mom was finishing her nurse training and my dad was finishing his master's. He's an educationist. He's late now. He died 27 years ago, 1997. And so they came back, from the UK, and they decided that they were going to give their daughters, because they ended up with daughters, we're four of us, but at the time, their children, the best they could ever give them. So Zimbabwe was towards the end of the liberation struggle, as we call it, Chimurenga. And my parents applied for me to go to the Dominican convent in Gweru, which was formerly known as Gwelo. And I got in. And I got in as a mistake because the nuns were taking, we call them nuns, the Dominican sisters, were
Yes.
taking either an African child, a colored, which is what we call mixed race children colloquially, or an Asian child. They were taking one per year. And when they read my last name, which is Garwe, they thought it was Gawi. So they thought it was Irish or something. And
Oh,
so
goodness.
I got a place. And I got in and I walked into school with my blue ribbons. My mom is like Mrs. Bouquet. She's very sort of everything should be perfect. I don't know if people have ever watched Keeping Up Appearances. That's my mom.
Yes.
It's a comedy. It's a British comedy. And so I had the perfect blue ribbons. And I was one of the first African children to go to a multiracial school. Now, at the time, my father was a schools inspector. So Gweru was quite mixed. They started to do this bringing people in of color. But Mutare, where we were transferred to, they had never had a black child. So I was the first black child in the Mutare Dominican convent. It was called Amtale at the time. So I
Mhm.
was the only black child from grade 1 to grade 7, so in primary school. So I have always been in white spaces, Caucasian
Mhm.
spaces, if you like. And
Mhm.
the one thing that I can tell you is so after Mutare, we had to move to Harare because the war was ramping up. And so they were starting, Mutare was right by the border with Mozambique. And that's where
Mhm.
the soldiers, our soldiers, the Zimbabwean soldiers were coming in and fighting for the war. So there was a lot of bombing, there was a lot of destabilization. So we moved to live with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, Gogosoneni Mbofana, in Harare, in the township of Highfields. My grandfather, um, maternal, was a journalist, Philip Mbofana. So he was also very forward thinking for his time. And he educated all his children, sent them all overseas to get educated. So all my aunts and uncles are broadcaster, they are nurses, teachers, just really well educated. And my uncle, the youngest son, was in IT at that time. So it's a family that comes from education. And on my dad's side, my grandfather was an extension officer. And so my dad was also educated. But my dad comes from the rural side of education and my mom comes from the township. So I've always had this like very cross-cultural contribution. And the interesting thing about my parents is they both had seven siblings. So I had
Wow.
like seven siblings each. So I had 14 aunts and uncles from all my parents. So it's a huge family. And then, in Zimbabwe, there's the extended family. So I come from a huge extended family, which really nurtured me and really showed me tolerance of
Mhm.
individuality and difference. Because you can imagine in this whole family, there's so many different personalities. So I always
Mhm.
grew up knowing that people are different. You just love them for who they are, and they love you for who you are. So I then went to the Harare convent from standard 3, I think. And then I was in Harare all the way until my A levels. My parents then became, so Zimbabwe got independence in 1980, and my parents were part of the first cohorts. So my dad was the first High Commissioner to Kenya. So he opened the embassy in Kenya, and then he was ambassador to the US. So my tertiary education, I went to the University of Maryland, College Park, because it's
Mhm.
coincided with my dad becoming the ambassador to the US.
Okay.
So I've lived in Zimbabwe, Kenya, and the US in my young life. And then I just continued to work in the UN. So I now, I've lived in so many countries. I travel extensively. I mean, I was trying to count the number of countries I've traveled to, over 70. I've traveled on every continent. So I think from my early education to now, I'm kind of nomadic, and I
Yes.
kind of don't belong anywhere. And my birthplace is Zimbabwe, but
Mhm.
I've lived in South Africa. I love it. I'm currently in South Africa seeing family and friends. I'm sitting in this beautiful sun getting my vitamin D. So, for me, home is where I am and where people who love me are. I don't have, if somebody says to me, I'm actually grappling is with where will I retire to? Because I have so
Wow.
many spaces that I would love to retire to.
So currently your home is in Rome.
Currently, my home is Rome in Italy. I work for the Food and Agriculture Organization. I'm an economist. However, my current portfolio, I'm released by FAO. I am actually the head trade unionist, I'd call it. I'm doing staff representation at a very difficult geopolitical time because, as you
Mhm.
know, a lot of member states, the US being the largest, are questioning the UN and questioning the foundations of the UN. So staff
Mhm.
representation at this time is very challenging. And when I got home, honestly, praise, I was exhausted. I needed this break because people were losing their jobs. There was less money in the system. It's a time of great crisis and great change. And I see it as a time of great opportunity for reform. And so when I got home, I was completely drained. And I was drained because of the emotional impact of this sudden, abrupt halt. President Trump got into power and they immediately said no more aid. And the
Mhm.
one thing I must say is I'm HIV positive, praise. So the first impact was the stopping of the PEPFAR fund. And the
Mhm.
PEPFAR fund is the fund that's funded HIV and tuberculosis and all these diseases through USAID and through the US government. And the stopping of this fund was catastrophic because worldwide it stopped operations, it stopped clinics, it stopped the distribution of medication. And I was triggered. I was completely triggered because without ARVs, I've lived with HIV for 33 years. And
33
and I
years.
started ARVs in 2004. I was
Wow.
diagnosed in 1992. Now, if I go back to that story,
Yes,
at
please
that
go back to
time,
that story because
yeah,
when, for my cohort in our generation, I lost my cousin who was a year older than me to AIDS when she was 25. And, growing up in Zimbabwe, there's a certain point in time where it was such a huge, huge problem for us, but there was so much stigma surrounding it that there was a lot of hush hush about it. And so I truly believe that there are other people like me who grew up in that time who will find so much healing from this conversation because, now to be able to see somebody who's lived through it and thrived through it and still continue to live an amazing life, to me, it's such an incredible thing. So please take
thank
us
you.
back to that story because when I was reading your story, I was like, there are parts I was crying, there are parts I was screaming because I was like, scandalous there.
I love the word scandalous. Yeah, I think that's going to be my word for this week, scandalous. So when I was diagnosed, I was going for, my friend was selling insurance. right? And I've been a big advocate when my friends start a business. I'm always the first to be an early adopter of my friends. I support them. It's one of my values. I always
Mm-hmm.
try and give back to my community. And so I was 26. Praise. I was living my best life. I was working for the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR. So I was a young professional in my own country working with refugees. I was hot shit, like, at 26, everything. You're just
Yes.
in you're blooming, you're gorgeous, you're dating. And I just started dating my ex-husband, and it was a passionate relationship,
Mm-hmm.
so I went to do a blood test, because what you used to do was you do a blood test, and then you go and collect the blood test, and you sign the forms for the insurance. So I had slept over at my boyfriend's house without my parents knowing. I said I was sleeping over at a friend, because as an African girl, there was
Yes.
none of this. I can move into an apartment and live by myself. No, 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 no. My parents were
No.
conservative. I did have my own separate kind of cottage at the house, but I was not leaving my father's house type thing. So I said to him, his name is Rocky. I said, Rocky, I just need to pass through the insurance, and then I'm going to work. So he came with me. And honestly, praise, I don't know the date, because it was one of the most traumatic things that ever happened. Because imagine, this is the time when people are dying of AIDS. Like, there's no ARVs, there's no cure. It's still very, very young. They had started to call it the gay disease first. You had to be gay to get HIV. There were all these conspiracy theories. It was started by prisoners in the US system. It was man-made, all this stuff. So I walk in, and the nurse, there's no counseling. There's no sort of sit down, I'm preparing. I was literally on a high, right? I've just come with my boyfriend. This is cool. We're living life. We're cool. We are the it type of 26. Our generation was partying. I've got my own money. I don't have many bills because I'm living at my parents. And this woman says, I can't give you insurance because you're HIV positive. Wow, right? Luckily, my ex-husband was amazing. I mean, I think I went cold. I
Mm-hmm.
honestly believe, because what I do when I'm traumatized is I just shut down. I almost observe myself from an
Yes.
external source. And so the nurse was done. She was like, here are your results. We can't give you an insurance. Bye. So we walk
Whoa.
outside, and even the sun didn't feel warm, but he just hugged me and he said, Wadzi, everyone dies. Everybody's going to die. So you might as well live. Whatever time we have now, let's just live.
That
So,
is just so that's just so amazing for that time period
and
and
he was
being
5 years
that young.
younger than me, Praise. I was 26, he
Wow.
was 21. So you can imagine to have that level of maturity, and the fact that he could have gotten HIV from me, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're sleeping together. There's no condoms. You know, we're just being young.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we trauma bonded, because I could
Mm.
not tell anyone. How was I going to tell my
Mm.
parents I'm HIV positive? Firstly, their daughter's pure. So how would she have gotten HIV?
Oh.
In my dad's eyes, I hadn't slept with anybody. But also in four people had HIV, and it was called Mkondombera. So
Mm-hmm.
you would see people losing weight, and it would be immediate. It's like, oh God, we're going to bury them soon. And we were literally burying people in dozens. It was a pandemic. The same way that happened with COVID, that's what
Mm-hmm.
was happening. Bodies were going, people were distressed. And nobody had an answer to it. But having come from a medical family, so nutrition was a big thing in our family. And honestly, my ex-husband was like, we're just going to live. There's no time period. So I adopted a persona of my time is short. I
Yeah.
live in the moment, and I'm just going to live. And so what we did is we ran away. We ran away to Mozambique. Um, we,
How
we,
do that when your dad was like
we
a government
bordered
official?
We border jumped. We went to the Mozambique and Mutare border and we walked up the hill, got caught by soldiers. We
Oh my
bribed the
gosh.
soldiers and we went to Mozambique. And you can do that when you're young. It's an
Yeah.
adventure. I mean, we took the clothes on our back. My mom actually said to me, because they didn't know where I was, they didn't know what was going on. I just quit my job at UNHCR and I just left. And it's part of the trauma because you're trying to process the trauma. And unfortunately, a very good friend of mine, and she was a broadcaster, died, and I went to a funeral. And just before she died, we had a very intense conversation about HIV, right? And she knew she was dying, and she said to me, "What?" She didn't know I had HIV. I was just listening to her. I'm one of these
Mm-hmm.
people that people just tell stuff. They just,
Yeah.
I sit there and they just tell stuff. I'm very extrovert, but I'm also quite introvert in a way. I can listen
Mm-hmm.
to people. I can be the star of the show or I can be not. I'm quite good
Mm-hmm.
at that. And so she just sat and she needed somebody to talk to. And she just told me about her journey with HIV. And her funeral was harrowing. Because she was a celebrity. So
Yeah.
all these people came and it was outpourings of just grief. And a number of then quite prolific people started dying. And I realized that I couldn't go to funerals anymore because each time I went, I saw my own mortality. And I would look at the symptoms and I'd start to sort of become a hypochondriac. And so I stopped going to funerals. I couldn't do funerals. I couldn't do them. And luckily, so we escaped. We went to Mozambique. I got a job with an NGO called Food for the Hungry, Fundação Contra
Mm-hmm.
Fome, learned Mozambican and also Portuguese. I became a
Portuguese
Mozambican.
is not an easy language to learn.
No, it's not. But you do what you need to. And my ex-husband was with me. We were having the adventure and we were
Mm-hmm.
missing for about 6 months. So my mom said, Wadzi, I mourned you already. When you finally die, I'll never mourn you because I just left. Now imagine I'm this huge personality. I'm the
Mm-hmm.
eldest daughter. And suddenly I'm missing, I'm gone. When you think about missing persons, that's who I
Oh,
was.
and your sisters even didn't know where you were?
No one knew. My sisters are like, Wadzi. One minute we had this huge presence, and another, so they have abandonment issues with me. They're always like, you left us,
Oh.
And I was the elder sister. So of the four of us, the one who comes after me is 4 years younger than me, and then we have
Mm-hmm.
a huge gap. And then there's the next one, Nyemu, is 13 years younger, and the youngest is
Wow.
16 years younger. So in many ways, I was an elder sister and a parent to my younger
Yes.
sisters. So what happens is, my sister found me Chipo because she's like an
Mm-hmm.
investigator. My sister should have been Sherlock Holmes. So she found me, she tracked me. And one day the phone rings at the office and she asks for me and the person put me through and she said, Wadzi. And I said, Chipo, burst into tears. So I was
Oh,
found.
this was the time before Google, so that is amazing.
That's what I'm saying. My sister should be Sherlock Holmes. There were no mobile phones, there was no Google, there was no Facebook, there was nothing. It was maps and,
Wow.
white TV, color TV. But still, I'm not telling anybody I'm HIV positive. The only two people who know I'm HIV positive are myself and my ex-husband. And what happens is my parents put pressure on my husband. They used to call him every week on Sunday and say, when are you marrying our daughter? And praise the weirdest thing. We knew my father would call on Sunday, and
Yeah.
every single time he'd call, somehow my ex-husband would pick up the phone because we'd be like, don't pick up the phone on Sunday. It's going to be my dad. And somehow
Yeah.
it was always him that picked up the phone. And it was all my dad saying, so when are you marrying my daughter? And praise. And we're having fun. We're living, right? Yes, we've got this HIV there, but we're living. We've got
Mm-hmm.
jobs. We're in a new country. We're getting to know Mozambique. And Mozambique had just gone through a civil war. So it was a beautiful time to be in Mozambique because it was a time of regeneration, rejuvenation. There was no sort of class hierarchy. So we just fit in. And we are exotic because we come from Zimbabwe. I had worked with Mozambican refugees. So I was like, I now want to see what it's like where they're back home. And I'm helping in nation building because I'm working for this
Mm-hmm.
NGO. We're opening roads where there was war. It's amazing. And then my ex-husband, one day, we're at the beach, we're having cocktails. I used to have vodka. It was with coconuts, with the
Mm-hmm.
coconut milk. And he says, would you marry me? And I was like, yeah, sure. That was the proposal. I didn't realize it was the proposal. He then says, I've got to go to Zim for a little while. I've got to make it right. I've got to go visit people. He doesn't tell me he's going to ask to do the bridal process, to do lobola, which is our bride price, you know,
Mm-hmm.
ceremony. And at the same time, at work, I've been asked to go and learn Portuguese formally because I'm working more and more with, Mozambican people who've been displaced, and some of them can't even speak Portuguese. They speak, their dialects. So it was very important that I had one language that was a business language for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to Maputo in December to do this sort of what they called an immersion, right?
Mm-hmm.
With a one-on-one teacher paid for by the organization. And he said, okay, so while you're in Maputo, I'm just going to go to Zim because I'm going to be alone.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, I wasn't feeling great at the time. I just felt
Mm-hmm.
queasy. I didn't know I was pregnant. And I
Mm.
called home to ask my mom, Mom, I'm just not feeling right. My little sister Nyemu picks up the phone and she says, Tanonga Mari, we're married. And I'm like, Tanonga Mari means we've picked the price, we've
Yeah.
agreed to be married. And I'm like, I'm confused. I'm like, who? Who's married? And she's like, you. I said, what? Nobody prays. Nobody. And even when I asked them now, I asked my mom now, like, why did nobody say to me you're getting married? My tetes, who are my paternal aunts, my uncles, everybody just colluded and I was married. I don't even know
Wow.
the date of my Rora. I don't know it.
The other part of our culture, the way we just put marriage on such a pedestal,
You know,
that it
but
was the
nobody,
highest level. They don't even care what you think
say,
or where you are. They say, oh, she's
nobody,
married.
nobody asked me, Wadzi, do you want to get married? Like nobody.
No.
Like, like Rocky just said, would you still marry me? But he didn't say, here's the engagement ring. I'm going to do the process. Nothing. And nobody on my side of the family thought, maybe we should ask Wadzi if she wants to marry this guy.
Yeah.
Everything was she's the eldest daughter, we're going to get married, and the train left the station without me and it moved. So I'm absorbing this. I'm now married, and then I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying to my mom, I'm feeling like this, and she says, well, check for pregnancy. And of course I'm pregnant. So at Christmas I then come to Zim, and as I'm talking to my mom, I said I'm pregnant, and she says, oh well, then we have to have a wedding. We have to have a white wedding because for my
Yep.
mom
Yep.
Rora is not being married because
No.
my parents were very, very Catholic. They were very Christian. So she's like, we have to have a wedding. And I'm like, well, if you want a wedding, because I had never been that girl, praise, who was marriage was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to be the aunt. I
Yeah.
never wanted to be married. So for me, it was like, a wedding? Like plan a wedding? Why? So my mom and my dad planned the whole wedding because remember now I think he was now chief of protocol. So he's left being an
Mm.
ambassador, he's chief of protocol. Huge, huge. I mean, these are the
Huge
creme de
celebrity
la
wedding.
creme of Zimbabwe,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we had 500 people at our wedding at the Sheraton,
Wow.
which had just opened. So this is 1994, 16th of April. It was the biggest wedding at that time. The hotel was gold. So it was this new gold, beautiful hotel. And, of the 500 guests, Rocky and I received 10 invitations to give to our friends. Everybody
Yeah,
else,
because
the whole marriage is not about us. My marriage name was Katsande. My father-in-law received 60 invites. So everybody else was a diplomat, a high-level person. Like the relatives were the people I knew at the wedding. The person who gave my speech was the dean of the diplomatic corps. So he was Palestinian, didn't know
oh
me
my
from a
goodness.
bar of soap, had never met me, and he's talking about me. I'm like, dude, so this is like life, but this was to
I
go
can
back.
just because I can just see it.
But remember, I'm now carrying a baby and
Mm-hmm.
I am petrified. We go back to the HIV story. Remember, I am dealing with my pregnancy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm freaking out because I'm bringing a baby into this world. Everything's happening at me. Everybody's getting excited about the wedding. Everybody's in there. I mean, praise, I didn't even know what the colors were for my wedding. My mom did everything. I literally starred at my own wedding.
I
Like,
feel
please
like
just
your
show
mom
up.
and my mom.
You know,
Same. They
They,
needed their own show because
you
that's
know,
literally what happened with my first wedding.
imagine. And not only am I starring at this wedding, my mom is exhausted because she's done everything. I'm
Everything.
fresh faced. I'm fine. My dad cried the whole wedding. Everything's
Oh,
happening at me. And I'm like, but I don't care because I've got this baby growing in my stomach. And we discovered just before the wedding, in fact, when we were styling my hair to do a test run for the wedding, I collapsed. I fainted. And we discovered that I had preeclampsia. So I didn't know what preeclampsia was. But my mom, who's a nurse, was like, full bed rest, keep your legs up, this is dangerous. I'm like, all of this is happening. Remember, nobody except myself and my ex-husband know I'm HIV positive. So we are
so you
playing
have this
roles.
big secret that is
Yes.
already.
Yes, yes. We have our masks on. And remember, we're now the prodigal children returning home, and we're doing it right. So, this is the big feast for the prodigal son and the prodigal daughter who had run away. So,
Mm.
we have to play this role. This ship is sailing whether we want to or not, and you are the guest stars and you're going to behave, right?
Oh my gosh.
So, and there's this huge secret and the burden of the
Mhm.
secret. But we're playing our roles. We're fantastic. Everybody loves us. We're the perfect couple. Our wedding, it was iconic. To
Wow.
this day, people still say, Wadzi, your wedding was iconic. And it was iconic because both my parents walked me down the aisle. It was the Anglican Cathedral. So it's pomp, it's ceremony, it's celebrity, if you think about
Yep.
it, on the political side. And
Hmm.
remember, my dad and my parents were the political elite. These are the guys who have taken the country into this new Zimbabwe. These are the guys who are, formulating policy. These are the
Hmm.
guys, and the 90s were amazing. I mean, this was the
Yes.
time when Zimbabwe was at its element,
Zimbabwe.
you know? So these are the celebrities, these are the guys that everybody wants to know. And
Hmm.
on Rocky's side, his dad was a multimillionaire. So
Hmm.
so it's a political union with a business union.
Hmm.
So it's huge. And you can imagine the competition between the parents to show who will do it better and all this stuff.
Yes. Because you're
But
coming, they're coming with their money.
and so all of this is happening, but it's all happening at me because I've just resigned to, I'm the prodigal daughter, I'm being welcomed back, I'm pregnant, but in my head, I'm losing my mind. So my son's birth was a natural birth and it went very well. And I haven't even told the doctor I'm HIV positive. So nobody knows. So when the child is born, praise, I'm
Mm.
terrified, right?
The weight of
Terrified.
that. Oh.
And at the natural birth room, you come and then they thrust this bloody child at you so that they latch on your breast. It's a first experience. I'm terrified. And so this is all happening at me. And for the first few months, I was just praying that he would thrive. And he's hitting every mark. I mean, this boy was fantastic. And he was not HIV positive. But it took me six
Wow.
to 8 months before I could take him for the test. And I'm praying and I'm praying. So I made a vow with God. And I said, I'm only having.
Because at that time, I imagine you were probably not even taking antiretrovirals,
No, there
or
were
had
none.
you?
There were none.
Wow.
This is 1994. There's still,
Zimbabwe, 1994.
and it's still in development worldwide.
Mm.
ARVs, if they are there, are so expensive, they're not
Hmm.
available. And they're still experimental. So it's not like the COVID where we've done all this stuff and they can, bring out drugs immediately. This is a new pandemic, never seen anything like it. It's worldwide. Nobody knows what it is. And they're
Mm.
finding different strains of it in different places. So the beauty is my CD4 count was around 600, 700, 800 at the time. I wasn't tested then. So I'm not as likely to give HIV to my son as I would have been if I had more of the virus in my body. My viral count is
Hmm.
still very low. And so I make a vow, I make a deal with God. I'm not having another child. Right? This is it. You've given me this gift. This is fantastic. We're done. Right? I get on no plant. No plant were these implants that stop you ovulating. I didn't bleed. So everything's fine. I'm covered.
Hmm.
I'm not, my child is born. He's perfect. We're done. My dad dies in 97. Praise. I bled for 6 weeks because the death was so sudden. He just collapsed, right?
Oh my goodness.
I was now living in Harare. We've come back from Mozambique. My ex-husband is still working in Mozambique. So we're commuting. We've got a young family. Mooney's going to creche. You know, you're getting on with it. You're now married and really living together, and you're navigating marriage, the
Now
traditional
you're having to
aspect,
be grown-ups.
adulting. I've always traveled for my work. I was a consultant then, and I'm traveling, and I had to go to Botswana, and we're going in. I've always worked in agriculture, agricultural economics. So we're in the middle of nowhere, and I'm bleeding every day, and it's heavy. So this no plant is no longer working, and it's all because of the stress of my dad's death. I'm grieving. It's horrible. I come back to Zim. My sister, Chipo, picks me up at the airport. She was the one that comes after me. And I'm pale. And she's like, what the hell's going on with you? Because she was very good with these medical things. She's an IT, but she's always had this ability to do medical stuff. And she said, I'm taking you straight to a doctor. So she took me straight, and I had a DNC to clean out my womb, to take out the no plant. It was immediate. And the doctor said to me, now you're going to be highly fertile. So be very careful. Use a condom. So we're using condoms. And I think my ex-husband could see I was grieving. And I don't know, but he stealthed me. You know what stealthing is? When you're in the middle of the act, that my husband took off the condom and pretended that
Oh,
it had
fallen
fallen off.
off.
Yeah. And I was stealth, and I got pregnant. And I felt it.
Oh,
I knew I was pregnant. I felt it. We were discussing before we came into studio about a higher power. I
yes.
felt the egg meet the sperm. And I don't know
Oh,
how to explain that to anybody, but I felt it. I knew I was pregnant at that moment. And I thought, oh God, no, 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 no. So I went into denial. Praise.
oh.
I went into
Because you're now
denial.
thinking about that pact you made with God.
So I'm like, nope,
And yeah.
I'm not going to be pregnant. I'm just going to will it away. Unfortunately, again, and this child, like I told you, Ruarache was like insistent. This child is like, I'm here. Hello, I'm
I'm not
coming.
going anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere. And so I'm still working in Zim. Rocky's working in Mozambique. And I get home, and I'm like, and this child is like, I'm here. And my whole body is fighting this child. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just not going to do this. I'm going to pretend this is not happening. So I go and see Dr. Peter Mbizo, who says to me, Wadzi, there's so much more development in the HIV space. Don't worry. And I had to be put on full bed rest because this child was like, you are going to concentrate on me. This gestation is happening, and I am the focus. So I am completely on full bed rest. I cannot move. The preeclampsia is really bad. I've got, the edema and the bloating and the hypertension and all this. So I go through this pregnancy, and I was watching this series. It was videos then, so videos and books that I'm reading, and I'm freaking out, right? Remember, I'm spending time by myself on full bed rest, and I'm freaking out. And at this point, I had started working for a management consulting firm, who then told me that they didn't do maternity leave.
Oh
So
my.
I'm let go. So, and I'm the main breadwinner, right? And so I'm freaking out financially. I'm freaking out about the HIV. I'm just freaking out, right? And I've got a young son, so I'm managing that as well. We're also living in two countries. Finally, my husband quit his job and came to them because he was like, you're not well. He's really happy about this pregnancy. I think he felt like you lost your dad, you need a pregnancy. I don't know. I don't know how men think. And I find this job with John Snow Seats as an in between. And they understood. They were a health NGO, and they needed somebody who understood Portuguese. So I would go in and out, and it was fantastic. They were, I had could put my feet up, and I was doing programming and all this. In this pregnancy, everything is now different. Full bed rest. I discovered I'm preeclamptic before, and then the developments in HIV at the time were that you had to have a cesarean section. So I knew I was having a cesarean section. You cannot breastfeed. With the first pregnancy, I could breastfeed. And now there were ARVs, which were so expensive. But the doctor said you take them 3 months before giving birth and 3 months after to prevent mother to child transmission of HIV. And at this time, my CD4 count and my viral load is being measured. So the doctor says to me, Wadzi, it's highly unlikely that you will give the child HIV because of all these things we're putting in place, and your viral load is not high enough to transmit from mother to child. So there's greater assurance scientifically, and I can deal with. But again, it's traumatic in the sense that I have a baby shower, and it's one of the best days. I'm feeling great. Because with preeclampsia, you feel awful. You feel yucky all the time. And this time I felt good. I went out, I interacted with people. My friend had arranged a beautiful shower. Everyone's there. I look wonderful. I'm so happy. This is on the Saturday. On the Monday, we're going for a checkup. We go to the checkup. I'm glowing. I'm like, I'm in the best possible form I've been for ages. I get there and the doctor says, I have to admit you immediately. Your blood pressure is off the charts. The baby has to come now. This is like the 14th or the 15th of October, and I didn't even have preparation. We have just come from Maronja. We were staying in Maronja then. We've come for a checkup. We didn't bring baby clothes. We didn't bring hospital clothes. The doctor says you need to go and check your wife in immediately to Rocky and go and get clothes for her and clothes for the baby. I'm just going to monitor her blood pressure. And as soon as it comes down, we're operating. Now, praise at this time, father's late, and my mom had won a trip to the US. So she's not there. She was running
Oh my gosh.
a mobile garage, and she was the best performer. So she had won this prize. So she's in the States.
She's gone.
She's gone with her
Oh,
younger sister. My sister Chipo is not there. She's working in South Africa. So I've got my younger sister Nyemu, who doesn't drive. She's the one who's now handling. She's 13 years younger than me, right? So I'm in hospital. And men are not very good with packing and all this stuff. We're waiting for the blood pressure to come down. My mom's sisters are checking in, and I'm just thinking, oh my God, why is it always a production? It's always drama. And then 2 days later, on the 17th of October, my blood pressure is down enough that they can operate. So Ruvarashe came at 6 p.m. in the evening. Now, what happened was I had asked the doctor, and I said, look, as soon as you're in there, because you're doing a cesarean section, I want a tubal ligation at the same time. I'm not going through this ever again. I cannot have another pregnancy. I can't do this. It will kill me. And he agreed. So I have a tubal ligation at the same time as a cesarean. But when I'm coming out of an anesthetic, I have an allergic reaction. And so I go into crisis. And the doctor goes into crisis. And my gynecologist was not expecting this to happen. I actually saw him peeping round the corner, and I could see his face drop. And anesthesiologist is trying to work on me. I blacked out. I don't remember. So they were concentrating on me. So they then sedated me for, I think, 48 hours. When I now come out, so remember, I've been operated at 6 p.m. and then I wake up maybe a day or two later. And there's no baby. I'm in a hospital room, and my husband is sitting there. And I'm like, where's the baby? And he says, she's fine. She's big. Everything's fine. She's in the nursery. She's the biggest child in the nursery. Everything's fine. And I'm like, I don't believe you. Because why is the baby not next to me?
right. Because you're thinking of your past experience.
And I thought the baby was dead. I was convinced that
Oh
they
my
weren't
God.
telling me, why am I alone in this hospital room? Where's the baby? I see other mothers feeding their babies. Where's my baby? And Rocky's like, but it's fine. Just chill. We're trying to deal with you. He's trying to explain to me that I was the crisis. I'm not hearing this.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm thinking I've killed a child. So finally, the nurses bring the baby. They had to, because I was losing my mind. In the natural birth, the baby was immediately handed to me. I bonded with the child.
Yeah.
In this birth, the baby bonded with the dad, because as soon as I gave birth, I went into crisis. So the baby was given to the dad, and he bonded with my daughter.
Yeah.
And that's how it's always been. My son's always been sort of bonded to and my daughter's always been bonded to the dad, very close. And I always felt this kind of guilt. I couldn't breastfeed this child. So my boobs are large and I'm taking the medication to stop the milk.
The milk.
I've got a cesarean, so I'm healing from a cesarean. And I've got a child that I'm bottle feeding and not breastfeeding. So I always felt like, am I truly a mother to this child? And I'm still taking ARVs because remember, it was 3 months before and 3 months after. And I've got to hide the taking of the ARVs because I haven't told my mother because she's my primary parent now. So there's still this huge veil of secrecy and guilt. So I'm dealing with this. And I'm also the primary financial provider. So I'm thinking, okay, 6 weeks, I've got to get well. I've got to find a job. I've got to go back to work. I can go back to the management consulting again. So this is all going on in my head, praise. And I've got nobody to download this on. My ex-husband could only take so much. We were living with my mom at this point, and he's doing the home. Kwasha does not live in the Ambia's house. So we've got to find a house. All this is going on at the same time. So we're house hunting. I'm trying to get back to work so we can find a house, everything. And I've got this child that I'm bottle feeding. And this child is in the grandmother's house. I'm healing. Everyone understands that I had a crisis. So the concentration is let Wadzi heal and we'll take care of the baby. But I'm feeling like I need to bond with my baby and everybody's going away with the baby. Huge crisis. But I don't know it's a crisis. You're living. I can process it now when I'm talking to you, but I couldn't process it then because it's happening at me. And so finally, 6 weeks comes, I'm healed. I immediately go to work. So the baby is like 2.5 months old and I've gone off to work. And this is how we continued. And then we started building a house. And, so life is happening at you. Fortunately, the kids are both HIV negative, absolutely thriving. And remember, we're still like celebrity. You've got not just, I've got to live my normal life. You've also got, I'm in the public eye. My dad has died. People are watching us. Everything is you're still in the public eye. And now this cool young couple with 2 kids.
And everyone else is looking and saying couples goals.
The couples goals. And we're fantastic. We love partying because we both know I've got HIV. So every day is a gift. And so we're still living. We're living the celebrity life. We're living our lives. And we're in our early 30s. We're doing everything that you're meant to be doing. We're building a house. We're living. But now the cracks start to show. My ex-husband had never planned for children. And I think what happened is I grew up because of motherhood. Your hormones. I grew up and suddenly this is my responsibility. I brought these kids into this world. I need to get it together. And he rebelled and thought, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up for, trauma bonding and we're living
The fun, the trauma bonding.
We're living in Mozambique and we're having the time of our lives. That's what I signed up for. I didn't sign up for adulting. And this is when we began to diverge. Our parenting styles were very different. And remember, I'm 5 years older than him, so I'm more mature. I'm the breadwinner. I'm going out to work. I travel a lot. And at the time, as a consultant, you could be gone for 9 weeks because the consultancies were like that. We're building a house, so you're concentrating on that. And so we drifted apart. And ultimately, we divorced in 2014. I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't deal with cheating. And then he was gaslighting me that, oh, you travel so much. So, of course, I'm cheating. I don't have a wife at home. What do you expect me to do?
But then you are also the primary breadwinner.
Yeah.
What are you
I'm
supposed
sitting
to
there
do?
going, we can't stay at home because we need money.
Yeah.
But you also like the lifestyle that the money provides. But you're also gaslighting me
Right.
about not being a traditional wife at home. So it was a lot. It was a lot. So we broke up in 2014. And I still, very few people know I'm HIV positive. I'm now working in international development. I'm working for FAO. We're now more stable because Zimbabwe's gone through its own crisis and we had hyperinflation. So instead of consulting, I now took on a regular job because I was like, I need the kids to have stability. And the kids had to go into boarding school because of the inconsistency of their father, who's there but not there, a mother who travels.
Yeah.
So my marriage became a project, and it was too much of a project. I couldn't project manage my marriage and project manage my professional life and project manage the kids. Something had to give.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
walked away from the marriage. Um, and we were living in South Africa at the time. I was done. I couldn't do this anymore. And I still haven't told my mother I'm HIV positive.
All these years,
Imagine
you are
from
carrying that
26.
burden.
So on my 50th birthday, my son was going to college in Zim, and I'm now moving back to Rome because I'd been initially 2010 got the job, gone to Rome. Then I came to South Africa, and now I'm going back to Rome. So it's another transition. So I'm saying to my son, okay, you're going to college, you take the car that I have in South Africa. And so my 50th birthday happened at the Beitbridge border post as we were bringing the car into Zimbabwe. And I had a crisis. And I had a crisis because I had expected to die. And now I'm 50.
By then. Wow.
So I had this long come to Jesus moment with my son. And I'm like, I'm having a crisis. I'm having an existential crisis. You're grown. He was now 21. I have managed to live long enough to see you grow. I brought up my kids. They knew that mom is not well, mom could die. So I literally brought them up to live a life without me, you know? And my life was on steroids. So I'm building them a home so that they have a home in case I die. We've already put their house in their name so that there's no problems if I die. There's no tax because it's in their names. I'm saying to them, I need you to grow up quickly because I need you to be able to look after each other.
And the trauma on the kids growing up like that, always thinking mom could be dead at any point.
That's it. And a dad that's there but not present because he's dealing with his own traumas. I mean, I'm sure having this wife that's ill. In 2003, we had a terrible car accident. I broke my collarbone. I broke my ulna. It was terrible. And my viral load fell below 200. So I had full blown AIDS.
So
It actually fell
oh
to
my
4.
goodness.
And I was in Dar es Salaam working when this happened.
Wow.
So I go into the Aga Khan hospital. I couldn't breathe. I got pneumonia after the accident. Remember, my whole thing is I've got to leave my children financially stable if I die. So I become a worker. I'm an overachiever anyway, but I'm even more overachieving because I've got to leave my children stable. If I die and they're young, they need to be able to go to the best schools. They're in private school. They're at Rizawi. They're at Falcon. Very expensive schools. So I'm working myself to the bone. And remember, I'm telling you, I've got 3 projects. I've got the children and their education. I've got the building the house, which we finished in 2002. And I've got the husband who's in himself project. So the land reform happens. My mom gets a farm, and my husband, he's very good at agriculture. He manages that farm. But now again, my dad is a provincial hero. We're still in the public eye. So we're still playing happy families. My husband's cheating on me with local girls. My mom's hearing about it. There's all this family pressure to keep up appearances, keep the marriage going. You are the problem because you're never home. But you're earning the money and keeping the lifestyle. You know, it's a lot.
I'm curious, did the HIV diagnosis also play a role in this? Did you at some point feel this is a man who loved me, knowing that I was HIV positive and knowing through all that?
He was there at my worst moment. So how can I leave him? He's being stroppy, but I'm still protecting him and protecting his behavior. People are telling me he's cheating. People are saying, Wadzi, you're such a strong woman. Why'd you put up with this? And I'm like, no, but he was there at my most vulnerable moment.
And anyway, they don't understand because they don't know.
But also, after the accident, he's saying to me, Wadzi, you have tumors on the brain, you're sick. You know, I need to find another wife in case you die for the children.
Oh, and he meant like bringing another wife while you were still married.
Well, he's cheating on me because I need to prepare. And remember, we're a discordant couple. He's HIV
Yes, because he's
negative and
negative.
I'm positive. And he's like, I don't have
Whew.
HIV. I have to continue living and bring up the kids when you're gone. So it's
Wow.
gone from let's live to you've got tumors on the brain, right? And yeah, I don't even know.
I can't even imagine the gaslighting and just the trauma and the isolation. Because the one person that I feel you should feel more safe with is your mom. But your mom didn't even know.
She doesn't know. So she only found out because of the accident. So 2003, I had the accident and I broke all the stuff. But I'm healing quickly because I'm like, I've got to go back to work. I've got to make this happen. So I'm not even thinking that I've got broken bones that I need to heal from even just the trauma of having an accident. I lost pints of blood. So when I went to work in Dar es Salaam, I wasn't fully healed. And the outline where I'd broken it, they had put a pin, but it was too small. And they'd left glass in it. And so at the time, I didn't know there was glass. My immune system was compromised. So I go to work, I get pneumonia, I check myself into the Aga Khan. And I checked myself in because I can't breathe. I couldn't breathe. I have no other symptoms. I don't have a fever.
Mm. Wow. And you're alone in a foreign country.
Imagine. And you're checking yourself into a hospital and you're a consultant. So you're not even staff. I had a beautiful team leader. He fought in Africa and they did the test. So when I went in, they put me on oxygen immediately because I can't breathe. So they're worried and they put me on test. So the test took 3 days. So I'm not on any medication. I'm just on oxygen and the pneumonia is spreading. And it's that pneumonia that's associated with HIV. So it's like fluffy cotton in your lung. So finally, the doctor walks into the ICU. He looks pale. And I thought, okay, I'm dying. I'm dying. This is it. I'm dying. And he says, Wadzi, I have such a big thing I have to tell you. And I'm like, okay, am I dying? And he says, you're HIV positive. I was expecting him to tell me there was something terribly wrong with it. And I said, oh, I know. And the poor man, he was like, you knew. I said, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't tell you because, I couldn't breathe. And he says, okay, we're going to put you on cotrimoxazole, but we have to start you on ARVs. So I started ARVs in 2004. And he explained to me that once you start ARVs, you can't stop them. And I'm like, no, that's cool. I'm fine. I'm like, I thought I was dying. And this has been my attitude all the time. I'm like, oh, we can solve this. I'm a problem solver. So I wasn't processing the emotion. I was just like, oh, the solution. We're good. Wadzi, you need to heal now. So I was airlifted from Aga Khan because they said, look, we don't have the facilities. It's a great hospital, but the doctor was still worried. I remember my CD4 is 4. So he's like, you could die. I get to Zimbabwe to Dr. Enopis Banda, and for the first time I saw him worried. He's this jovial, very calm doctor. And he says to me, Wadzi, you make sure you've written your will. Make sure you say goodbye to everybody. I cannot guarantee that you will get through this. And I had to be put on a ventilator.
Wow.
So I'm on a ventilator. I'm dying. My mom finds out I'm HIV positive. All of this is happening. And my husband's having an affair. And yeah.
How do you not have a mental breakdown then?
But I am so focused on living. I'm so focused on making sure my kids are fine. And of course, now the family's really mad at my ex husband because they're like, how can you be having an affair on our daughter? You knew she was HIV positive. So, all of this processing of the emotions, they are now processing the emotions. I just, I'm getting wow. Now, remember, we had just finished constructing our house in 2000. We had a huge party in 2002, and everybody's saying he tried to kill you because he wants the house, which is very African, right?
Oh.
There's this myth.
Yes, the African way.
Once the house,
Nothing is ever on its own. It's always, oh, they're trying to kill
yeah,
me.
once the house is built, he's trying to kill you, and he's having an affair. So I'm now again protecting him. I did not even know the extent of the accident because nobody took any pictures. So it's huge. If you look, all these traumas are happening. So first we have the diagnosis. I'm 26. I'm 28 when my son is born. I'm 32 when my daughter's born. I'm 34 when I have the accident. So you can see it's a series of things that you're getting over, right? And just continuing. Plus, you're building a house. Plus, you're living, you're adulting. You're paying bills. We go through this. And so I leave him. And in 2016, I have the crisis, the existential crisis, because I've now got to face what do I do that now I'm 50. My life was this, but now I'm turning 50. And that's when I came out
Uh-oh.
into the world on Facebook and told everybody I was HIV positive.
You turned 50 and you came out. Were you like on live? Did you do a pre-recorded video? How did
No,
that even go down?
I just wrote it. I'm a writer. I just did a post.
You just wrote it. So I am curious though, because it's like the part of there is acceptable ways of getting HIV, being born with HIV, getting it through a blood transfusion and what have you. There is quote unquote unacceptable ways where people want to know, but how did you really get it? Does it matter? It's kind of like there is sort of excusable ways of getting pregnant before wedlock. And then there is oh, she was just a fast girl, just running around doing this. Oh, no, but it was just her first time, the only time, and she got pregnant, and it's like we are always finding ways to justify, finding ways to make it more palatable. But it's okay because it happened this way. Whereas, what does it matter at the end of the day? And I'm curious if people would, when they found out, if people would ask you, would actually friend come out and ask you, so how did you get it?
It wasn't, oh, you're HIV positive and you've lived with it for X number of years, which is what it is now, right? Everybody's like 33 years, you're aging with HIV, that's fantastic. At the time, it was like, how did you get it? Who gave it to you? Now they're side-eyeing my ex-husband. I'm like, no, he's not HIV positive.
He's
Yeah,
negative.
if he does have it now, it's not from me, all the stuff. And then I said to people, actually, it's none of your damn business.
Yeah.
Because I don't know who gave it to me, right? I can count on one hand the men I'd slept with at the time. Is it one of them? Some of them are dead. Maybe they had it. I don't know. But it could have been anything. It could have been maybe I got pricked by a needle. I don't know because nobody knew at the time. It was all evolving. It was all, coming. And so, yeah, hopefully I got it through sex. That question, praise, is so unnecessary in the sense that here I've had so much courage to tell you that a disease that's killed people. I've lived
Millions.
with
Millions.
Yeah, I've lived with this for years. And your first question to me is, how did you get it? And I'm sitting there like, really?
Yeah.
I
The insensitivity of it too, just to
it's
be like, wow, you are at being so vulnerable, and then someone is so insensitive to just be like, but how did you get it?
And if you did get it through sex, I need to look at you differently.
Right.
You're no longer that Wadzi that I thought you were. So for me, to honor, the men who have died of it, who are separate, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how it affected them and if they knew. Because there was so much denial around the whole HIV thing.
And also in that time period when you found out because you went for tests for insurance, it's not like people were just willy-nilly going and getting testing. So a lot of people didn't even know.
That's exactly
until they had wasted away.
That's exactly my point. And they died of whatever opportunistic infection it was. And
Right.
people buried them, and who knows? Unfortunately, I can count, on one hand, the men I've slept with. But that doesn't mean that even if I were one of those people who slept with a lot of men, what does it matter?
Right. Yeah, because then you have that woman who saved herself for marriage, got married, and got infected by her husband. So does that make that more acceptable?
Exactly. Of course, it would be great
Yeah.
to say, yeah, I got it through a transfusion or I got an acceptable way of getting it. But
Yeah.
no, it's just what it is. I have it and yeah, I have to cope. So coming out it was huge. It was a relief because now there's no secret.
Yes, that secret that's held you for those, what, 20 years that you held that secret, and just the weight of it and the trauma of it. And because when you have a secret that big, you are in bondage. When you have a secret, period, you're in bondage because you cannot truly live your authentic self and be yourself.
And the thing is, it was being weaponized against me, right? My ex-husband
Yeah.
is telling me, well, you're the one who's HIV. So who's the one who's really the cheat here? And how do I know you're not cheating anymore, with all these other men? How do I know you're not,
Oh, now you're saying that.
you know?
Oh, wow.
And of course, you must have tumors on the brain. Yeah, because I'm now confronting him about his behavior. He's like, no, you're seeing things, you're imagining things. It's not like that. He's gaslighting me. And he's got his story to tell, but I'm telling you from my perspective and how it happened. And I've got these kids that, live with a mother who could possibly die. And, they're doing the best they can and all this stuff. Coming out was a relief, and coming out and confronting my ex for his bad behavior, being able to say, no, I don't deserve to be treated like this, right? And this whole Zimbabwe thing that you can have a small house and you can do that. And no, you married me, right? And
Yeah.
you knew I was HIV positive. It's not something that happened, right? And
Yeah.
so now you can be the bigger nigger and say, oh, yeah, you knew I was HIV positive. You've walked with me through this whole thing. You can't now
Yes.
accuse me because you chose me as I was. And not only did you choose me, you went and married me without my permission, and so
Yeah.
so all of these were choices you made. You decided you wanted to be married to me.
Yeah.
You decided you wanted to have kids with me.
Yeah.
You decided you wanted to adult. Nobody forced you. I didn't get pregnant and track you, right? We lived together.
Yeah.
We didn't even know we were pregnant when you went to marry me, right? So you can't even claim, Kuti, oh yeah, she got pregnant, so I had to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've chosen this,
Wow.
and your family embraced me and they married me, and it was all part of the whole family process. So I chose me when I came out. And that's why my book, Stepping into Wadzi, Lessons from My Life,
Yeah.
is about my radical self-love. Because I know a lot of women, and I can say a lot of people, women or men, spend their lives trying to compromise and trying to please the other person and getting married because it's the right thing to do. I'm the eldest daughter. We're setting the adult. We played happy families to the gallery, and yet I was dying inside. And I had this huge secret. And it's very fortunate that I'm such a strong person that I never lost sight of my values, because I think a lot of people lose sight of their values, right? My ex husband comes from a polygamous family. So he was like, why are you stressed about me having other women? You should know I come from polygamy. But we had that conversation. When we first met, I said to him, you're polygamous. I come from monogamy. How are you going to deal with it? And he says, no, I want to have a monogamous union. So you can't change the goalpost halfway through because it suits you, you know?
Right.
That's not how life works.
Mm-mm.
And so coming out helped me step back into myself, because
Wow.
the compromise had been killing me. The playing happy families, and my son coined that phrase. He says, Mom, I don't want to play happy families anymore. It hurts. And
When that is now coming from the
yeah,
child.
and I had to model for my children a behavior that showed that you should always choose yourself, and you can only love yourself first. In order for somebody to love you properly, you need to know how to love yourself. And if you do things in order to please other people, you are compromising yourself, and you are compromising everything about you that you hold dear. And so the first gift to myself, I got an artist, a South African artist called Silas Motse, to paint me a picture of older Wadzi speaking to young Wadzi and looking at her through a mirror and saying, we're okay. We're
Whoa.
okay. we're back.
Wow.
I'm back to what I believed in as my younger self. And that picture,
So finding yourself.
and my daughter said, "Oh, mom, that is the most egocentric thing you can ever do." And, and I laughed out loud and I said, "No, it's the greatest gift of love I can give myself because I am saying to the world and to myself, I love you, Wadzi, and I've chosen
Wow.
you, Wadzi."
So tell me, how has your life changed since that stepping into yourself and that's ready, just embracing that radical self-love? What have the mind shifts been like? Because you really have to make a complete mind shift and leave those things that a lot of times our society and our growing up, our childhood, all the traumas that we face have got you to this point. How did you do that mind shift?
Had a breakdown. I went into a psychiatric
Mm.
unit.
Wow.
I was held up at work because I work for the UN and we go to these places. And this,
Yes, I did read about that. Like, what you had a hostage
yes,
situation?
we had a hostage situation. And I did what I usually do. You go through this highly traumatic hostage, AK
Yes,
47s
yes.
pointed at you, people wanting to kill you
Ooh,
situation. And I kept going, praise. I was the team
you
leader.
never took time to even get therapy, to even heal from that traumatic episode where you were you had faced death with your illness, but this is like immediate death with someone threatening to kill you in that moment.
And I did exactly what I usually do. I project managed my way through it. But because I had chosen to love myself, my inner voice was like, nah, we're not doing this anymore. We
It.
have to
Mm,
now bring rational, logical Wadzi together with emotional, sensitive Wadzi. We've got to merge them. So I had a breakdown. I went into a psychiatric
wow.
unit. The first time after the hostage situation happened in 2013. And I went through
Mhm,
therapy. And that's
mhm.
how, so I was in Rome. The hostage situation happened in South Sudan. I went back to Rome. I got therapy. I did meditation. I went to this beautiful place called Vipassana, a 10-day silent meditation, and I was healed. Praise.
What does silent meditation even look like? You don't talk for 10
Yeah.
days?
Me. People were like, Wadzi, you were silent for 10 days and you only eat vegetables. I'm not vegetarian. I'm the most carnivorous person on this earth. I even tell people, even if I'm on a drip, make sure that you put meat in my drip. That's how carnivorous I am. But I was so depressed. I went into deep post traumatic stress
Mm-hmm.
disorder,
Mm-hmm.
depression, and I couldn't cope. I couldn't put things together. So I had therapy and I went to this 10-day silent meditation. And I swear to God, praise, I was healed. I came out, I stopped taking the antidepressants. I was fine. But I'm still in denial about my personal situation. Because
Mm.
2013, I had not left my
Mm-hmm.
husband yet. And my therapist said to me, Wadzi, I think you need to go home to heal. You're a child of Africa. From what everything I'm hearing, you need to heal at home. But being an expatriate, they could
Mm-hmm.
not send me to Harare. So they sent me to
Mm-hmm.
Pretoria. My boss and
Mm-hmm.
everything, everybody was in sync to heal me. So they sent me to Pretoria. So I come back. So at that time, my ex-husband was at Wits University. He was doing his master's. So we come back and we try and play happy families. But at this point, I'm not so, it's before my 50th epiphany, but I'm like, no, I don't need to do this anymore. This
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel, and his behavior continues. And I'm just like, no, this is not for me. So that's why I walked away on the 31st of August because I was like, August is my birthday month. I born on the 18th of August. And I was like, no, I'm not going through another birthday unhappy, you know?
Mm.
And when I told my kids I was leaving their father, they were like, are you kidding me? Because they'd been saying to me, Dad is not good for you. You know, when kids start to see their father for
Mm-hmm.
who he
Mm-hmm.
is, and they're like, Mom, are you happy? You're never happy. He was losing his mind. He had never thought I would leave him
Yeah.
because of the trauma bonding.
Yeah.
And remember, I
Right.
haven't told anybody yet. This is not 50.
Right.
This is 2014. I'm 48. I had to leave. So I left. So that was the first step in taking back my agency. And when you first separate, you're still processing and you're still blaming and you're still trying to find a reason and you're still trying to justify your leaving because divorce is not acceptable in our culture. It's Shinga, keep going.
Yes.
He will come
Dos
right.
noite awarume.
He
Yep.
will come right. This
Yep.
will be okay. And it can't be. It'll never be. It's just
Right.
not going to happen. It's not going to change. He's not going to change. You're not going to change. You're not polarized. So first you go through this whole I need to justify to everybody why I'm leaving and then you get to no, I'm doing this for me. And once I settled into I'm doing this for me, that's the epiphany at 50. That's the telling people. And then, unfortunately, I had another incident where the plane dropped and, we lost the rotary. So I'm re traumatized. And so all the PTSD comes back and everything comes back. Again, it happened at work. And I'm still project managing. I'm still not facing myself. And I land the biggest project ever. I've traveled to all these countries and I get home. I have a huge party praise because I hadn't seen people. And I wake up on this Sunday and I'm crying. I cannot stop crying. And my daughter says, okay, we need you to get into therapy. When the trauma happened again, I immediately hold on my therapist and she said, Wadzi, would you mind going into hospital? And I said, I need it. She said, you need somebody professionally to take care of you. So the therapy, going into a psychiatric unit, facing the emotional traumas, naming them, labeling them, being able to call out people who had gaslit me, being able to call myself out for compromising my values, being able to put that whole story together is how I am now living my authentic life. And when you step back into yourself, you are so powerful because nobody can say stuff to me anymore because I'll tell them, you can't blackmail me. I've already told my story. I've already told you everything. There's nothing you can use against me that is a weapon because I own my story. I own my narrative. I have agency in and of itself, and the HIV does not define me, as does not the post traumatic stress disorder or the depression or any of that stuff. It does not define me.
Wow, that is powerful. Well, so what is your life purpose and mission now?
To give back,
Yeah.
to tell my story so it inspires other women and men, and to say to people, just be yourself. My favorite expression is be and do you unapologetically. The world will adjust. And above that, to exercise compassion with yourself. I have forgiven the Wadzi that tried to hold it together. She thought she was doing the best thing for her. It ended up being not the best thing, but I forgive her because she was trying. She was trying to adult. She was trying to have a marriage. She was trying to project manage. And now I like this vulnerable onesie. I love myself in my skin as I am right now, and I love unconditionally. And I'm very compassionate with myself.
I love that so much. That is just so life giving. Let's get to a little bit of a light round. Who are two women, dead or alive, that you would have to want to have dinner with and just learn from?
My mother is the one woman that I have conversations with all my life. She's amazing. She's a widow. She's, runs a farm. She's been through the land reform process. She's lived and she continues to live. She's 82 this year and she's amazingly strong. The other woman that I would love to have a conversation with is Wangira Maathai, the environmentalist in Kenya. She was amazing. She was truly amazing. Those are the two people I would love to have conversations.
That's awesome. If you could choose one word for this season in your life, what would it be?
Authenticity.
And you feel you're at your most authentic self now.
Yes.
What would you tell that woman that's struggling with being authentic, that woman that is still playing the part, still playing the happy family, still playing the happy employee, still caring about what other people think. What advice would you give that woman?
Don't lie to yourself. I never lied to myself. I always knew what I was facing, and I didn't have to tell other people. What the worst thing is to believe the happy families, to literally say, I am actually happy when you're not happy. Do not lie to yourself. That's what I would tell them. Whatever situation you're in, because I'm not saying leave every man, not every situation can be left.
Right.
But in that situation, be authentic. Have agency. Tell people, I'm staying.
Yeah.
I'm not happy, but I've chosen to stay. Don't say, I'm happy. That's a lie. Don't lie to yourself. And you don't have to say it to people. You can put the mask on outside, but in the mirror, don't lie to yourself.
Wow, that is powerful. This has been such an amazing conversation. You know, I could talk to you all day. This has been so good. I so appreciate you having this conversation with me through all the technical difficulties and just taking the time to talk to me, because I've been healed by this conversation, and I know there are people that are going to find healing in so many of the words that you spoke today. And I truly, truly, truly appreciate you coming on our podcast.
Thank you, Praise. Attend to your basic needs with compassion.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, my darling.